I believe that there are a few things that we need to keep in mind, and the first that come to my mind is obviously the spectrum bands that we need to have in place. And I'm then considering particularly two bands, and that is the 3.5 gigahertz band and the 26 gigahertz bands. So if we're having these two bands in place in a timely manner, including enough amount of bandwidth for each of the bands, then I'm suggesting that it would be around 100 megahertz of bandwidth for the 3.5 gigahertz band, and perhaps something like 400 to 800 megahertz of bandwidth for the 26 gigahertz band. And then we must make sure that these bands are also being made available in a harmonized approach throughout Europe. So then when I'm saying harmonized approach, and it should be in terms of spectrum arrangement and also in timing. And further to that, we need also to consider that the new technology, the 5G NR technology, is particularly designed for this bandwidth and is much more spectrum efficient in comparison with 4G. And also that we have the energy consumption per megabyte, which is also more efficient. So with that in regard, then we need to make sure that we are also benefiting from this new technology when we're releasing the spectrum. And then of course we have to consider the societal aspects of introducing these frequency bands using NR and 5G. That is that we need to consider the health aspect, education. We need also to consider like commuters, waste management, clean air, clean water, and which can be monitored in a very efficient way when we having NR in place. And we also need to consider like the coverage aspect of 5G, where we need to work together, the manufacturing industries, the operators, and in particular the policymakers and regulators, make sure that we would have coverage for road safety, but not least also for the digital divide. So if we have coverage, we are resolving two issues, the road safety and the digital divide. Well, there are two words that are significant, and that is timing and harmonization. And if we're looking at the timing, we need to make sure now that the regulations and the spectrum will come into play without any further delay, which is extremely important for Europe, as we see now that other regions and countries are already in play, and the auctions are taking place and the commercial deployments are on the way. And with that in mind, we need also to consider the aspects of European industries, because, and I'm not talking about the telecommunication industry alone, I'm talking about the car industries, all the mining industries, all sorts of industries in Europe. European industry is of world class and needs all its support it can get to make its production more efficient, which suggests that we need to have 5G in place now, so European industries can learn how to introduce 5G in their production and not fall behind as the other regions where we have 5G already in play very soon. Their industries might be able to introduce 5G earlier in the production than European industries. So therefore, from the industry perspective and IoT perspective, it's of a profound importance that Europe is early out, and we cannot afford any delay. And in terms of harmonization, it is of course important that the European regulators take a harmonized approach, again in relation to spectrum and timing, so we don't see a fragmented society, that we can respond with our technologies, and as the wideband technologies and broadband technologies are complex, and that means we need to have a clear regulatory situation. Sort of gatherings when we come together. We have had the gatherings earlier this year, particularly addressing 5G, and now we're having the Spectrum Management Conference here. They are very important to exchange views, and I think it contributes to the understanding between the different stakeholders and different communities, like we're having the mobile community, we're having the satellite community, broadcasting, and so on. All of us need to talk to the policymaker and the regulators that show up at these events. So that is the merit. Of course, also all the presentation is very valuable. So I think that would sort of conclude what is coming out of these sort of conferences.